Welcome to The Heir and the Servant, a touching romance set in the Grand Wexley estate, where Caleb Wexley, heir to a family fortune, falls in love with Ella Mason, a laundry maid. Their forbidden love faces fierce opposition from Caleb's controlling mother, testing if true connection can overcome rigid social barriers. Join us for a tale of sacrifice, courage, and love that defies all expectations. But before we start this story, comment below from where you are watching us. The morning sun shone down on Wexley Hill, the grandest estate in Meadowbrook County. The main house stood tall and proud on the hilltop, its white columns gleaming against the blue sky. The Wexley family had owned this land for 5 generations, and everyone in town knew their name. Down the hill, near the edge of the property, stood the servants' quarters. Simple wooden buildings where those who worked for the Wexleys lived their separate lives. Among them was Ella Mason, a young woman with dark curls and eyes that sparkled when she laughed. Ella hung sheets on the clothesline, humming to herself as the spring breeze played with the loose curls that had escaped from her head wrap. At 23, she had already worked at Wexley Hill for 5 years. Her mother had worked here before her, and Ella knew every corner of the estate. "That's a pretty tune," said Martha. The older woman, W. Ho, ran the kitchen. "You're in a good mood today." Ella smiled. "It's too beautiful a day not to be happy." "Well, don't let Mrs. Wexley hear you say that. She thinks we're paid to be miserable." Both women laughed, knowing how true that was. Victoria Wexley, the lady of the house, was known for her cold demeanor and harsh words. From the stables up the hill, Caleb Wexley watched Ella as she worked. At 26, he was the only son and heir to the Wexley fortune. His father, Richard Wexley, had been grooming him since birth to take over the family business, banking, real estate, and half the factories in the county. "Staring again, are we?" James, the stable master, spoke up behind him. Caleb quickly turned away from the window. "I don't know what you're talking about." James shook his head with a knowing smile. He'd known Caleb since he was a boy. "You ride by the quarters every day, you take the long way back from town, and you always find some reason to be where she is." "Is it that obvious?" Caleb asked, his voice low. "Only to me," James assured him. "I've watched you grow up, remember? I know when something's on your mind." Caleb ran a hand through his dark hair. "It doesn't matter anyway. Father would never allow it." "Probably not," James agreed. "Richard Wexley has big plans for you. A merger with the Sullivan family, if I've heard correctly." Cale, B, frowned. "You mean Eleanor Sullivan? Pretty girl, comes from money. Your father's been hinting at it for months." "I know." Caleb's voice was flat. "He mentions it every chance he gets." Later that afternoon, Caleb rode his horse slowly past the servants' quarters. He told himself it was just a pleasant route, but his eyes searched for Ella. When he spotted her hanging laundry, he slowed even more. The wind blew a sheet off the line, and Ella chased after it, laughing as it danced just out of her reach. When she finally caught it, she looked up and saw Caleb on his horse watching her. For a moment their eyes met. Caleb smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his usually serious face. Ella quickly looked away and went back to her work. That night at dinner, the Wexley family sat in the grand dining room. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, and the table was set with the finest china. "The Sullivans have invited us to their summer party," Victoria Wexley announced, her voice crisp and proper. "Eleanor specifically asked if you would be attending, Caleb." Richard Wexley nodded approvingly. "Good. The girl has sense. You should take her riding while we're there." Caleb pushed his food around his plate. "I'm not interested in Eleanor Sullivan." His mother's fork clattered against her plate. "Not interested? She's the most eligible young woman in the county." "She's boring," Caleb said flatly. "All she talks about is dresses and parties." Richard's face darkened. "You'll show proper respect for the Sullivans. Their banking connections are vital to our expansion plans." "Is that all you care about, business connections?" Caleb asked. "Watch your tone, son," Richard warned. "I built this family's fortune with those connections, and one day you'll be grateful for them." Caleb stood up from the table. "Excuse me, I've lost my appetite." He walked out, ignoring his mother's gasp of outrage. Caleb headed for the stables. his only place of peace on the estate. To his surprise, he found Ella there, brushing one of the horses. "Oh, Mr. Wexley," she said, quickly stepping back. "I'm sorry. I was just checking on Daisy. She seemed restless earlier." "It's fine," Caleb said, "and please call me Caleb." Ella looked uncertain. "I don't think that would be proper, sir." "There's no one here but us," he pointed out. She continued brushing the horse, keeping her eyes down. "Was there something you needed, Mr. Wexley?" "Just some peace and quiet," he admitted. "The house can be suffocating sometimes." Ella nodded, understanding in her eyes. "The stables are a good place to think." "You come here often?" he asked. "Sometimes. At night when my work is done." She patted the horse's neck. "The animals don't care who you are or where you come from. They just know if you're kind to them." Caleb watched her gentle movements. "I've seen you around the estate. You always seem happy." Ella smiled slightly. "I try to find joy where I can, Mr. Wexley." "I envy that," he said quietly. Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps. Ella quickly moved away from the horse. "I should go," she said, heading for the door. "Good night, Mr. Wexley." "Good night, Ella," he replied, watching her disappear into the darkness. The next morning, Victoria Wexley summoned Ella to the main house. Ella's heart pounded as she walked up the grand staircase. Being called to see Mrs. Wexley was rarely a good thing. Victoria sat at her writing desk, not looking up when Ella entered. "You wanted to see me, Ma'am?" Ella asked, standing with her hands folded. "Yes, I understand you were in the stables last night," Victoria said, her voice cold. Ella's throat went dry. "Yes, Ma'am. One of the horses seemed unwell." "That's not your job," Victoria snapped, "and I've been informed that my son was there as well." "Mr. Wexley came in while I was there, yes." Victoria finally looked up, her eyes hard. "Let me be very clear, Ella. Your position here depends on understanding your place. The stables are not part of your duties." "Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry." "And conversations with family members should be kept to a minimum, especially with my son." Ella nodded, her cheeks burning with humiliation. "I understand, Mrs. Wexley." "Good. That will be all." Ella hurried back to the servants' quarters, fighting tears. Martha took one look at her face and pulled her into the kitchen. "What happened?" she asked. "Mrs. Wexley warned me to stay away from the stables," Ella said, "and from her son." Martha's eyes widened. "Oh, child, that's dangerous territory." "Nothing happened. We just talked for a minute." "That's a minute too long in Victoria Wexley's book," Martha warned. "Be careful, Ella. People have lost their positions here for less." Over the next few days, Ella made sure to avoid the main house and the stables. She focused on her duties, cleaning, laundry, and helping in the kitchen when needed. But she could feel Caleb's eyes on her whenever he passed by. Once, when she was picking vegetables in the garden, he deliberately walked by, stopping briefly near her. "Are you avoiding me?" he asked quietly. Ella kept her eyes on her work. "Your mother made it clear that I should keep to my duties, Mr. Wexley." "My mother doesn't control everything," he said. "She controls whether I have a job," Ella replied, finally looking up at him. "This position puts a roof over my head and food on my table." Caleb frowned. "I wouldn't let her dismiss you." "With all due respect, sir, you don't know how things work for people like me." Ella stood up with her basket of vegetables. "Please, just let me do my job." She walked away, feeling his eyes on her back. That weekend, the Wexleys hosted a garden party. The lawn was filled with the county's elite families, women in colorful dresses and men in suits despite the summer heat. Ella and the other house staff worked tirelessly, serving drinks and food to the guests. He tried to be invisible, moving quickly and quietly through the crowd. Eleanor Sullivan had attached herself to Caleb's arm, her blonde curls bouncing as she laughed at everything he said. He smiled politely, but his eyes repeatedly scanned the lawn, searching for someone else. Richard Wexley clapped his son on the shoulder. "You two make a handsome couple," he said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. Eleanor beamed. "Caleb has promised to show me the rose garden later." "I did?" Caleb asked, then caught his father's warning look. Oh yes, the roses. As Ella passed with a tray of champagne glasses, Eleanor stopped her. "You there, bring us fresh drinks." "Yes, miss," Ella said, keeping her eyes lowered. "And be quick about it," Eleanor added. "It's dreadfully hot out here." When Ella returned with the drinks, she heard Eleanor talking to her friends. "The help here is so slow. If this were my house, I'd have a much more efficient staff." Caleb's jaw tightened. "Our staff works very hard, Eleanor." "Well, they should. It's their job after all." Eleanor waved dismissively at Ella. "That will be all." As Ella turned to leave, she accidentally bumped into another server. The tray tilted, and a glass of champagne spilled down the front of Eleanor's pink dress. Eleanor shrieked, jumping to her feet. "You clumsy fool! Look what you've done!" "I'm so sorry, miss," Ella said, horrified. She grabbed a napkin and tried to help. "Don't touch me," Eleanor snapped, slapping Ella's hand away. Victoria Wexley appeared instantly. "What's happening here?" This girl ruined my dress," Eleanor cried. "It's imported French silk." Victoria's cold eyes fell on Ella. "Go to the house immediately. I'll deal with you later." "Mother, it was an accident," Caleb interjected. "Not now, Caleb," Victoria hissed. "Take Eleanor inside to clean up." Ella hurried away, humiliation burning through her. In the kitchen, Martha took one look at her face and pulled her into a hug. "What happened?" "I spilled champagne on Miss Sullivan's dress," Ella said, her voice shaking. "Mrs. Wexley is furious." Martha sighed. "It was an accident. Surely she'll understand that." But both women knew better. Victoria Wexley was not known for her understanding. Later that evening, after the guests had gone, Ella was summoned to Victoria's study. She stood trembling before the desk as Victoria listed her failings. Carelessness, inattention to detail, embarrassing the family in front of our guests. Victoria's voice was like ice. "I've been watching you, Ella. You're becoming a problem." "I'm sorry, Mrs. Wexley. It won't happen again." "No, it won't," Victoria agreed. "Because you're being reassigned. Tomorrow you'll begin working in the laundry room full-time. No more serving at events. No more working in the main house." Ella's heart sank. The laundry room was hot, steamy work, the least desirable position on the estate. "Yes, ma'am," she said quietly. "And let me be perfectly clear," Victoria added. "Any further incidents and you'll be dismissed without a reference." Ella walked back to the servants' quarters in the dark, tears streaming down her face. Without a reference, she'd never find another decent position. She'd end up in one of the factories, working 12-hour days for barely enough to survive. She was so lost in her thoughts that she didn't notice Caleb until he stepped out from behind a tree. "Ella," he said softly. She quickly wiped her tears. "Mr. Wexley, you startled me." "I'm sorry about what happened today," he said. "Eleanor was out of line." "It doesn't matter," Ella replied. "Your mother has made her decision." "What decision?" "I've been reassigned to the laundry room." Caleb frowned. "That's ridiculous. It was an accident." "Please don't interfere," Ella begged. "You'll only make it worse." "How can it be worse?" "She threatened to dismiss me without a reference if there are any more incidents." Caleb stepped closer. "What does that mean, incidents?" Ella looked away. "I think she means you, Mr. Wexley. She doesn't want me anywhere near you." "Why, because I actually see you as a person and not just a servant?" "Because I'm not the kind of woman someone like you should notice," Ella said bluntly. "I need this job, Mr. Wexley. Please respect that." She turned to go, but he caught her hand. The touch sent a shock through her body. "I see you, Ella," he said softly. "When you smile, it's the most genuine thing on this entire estate. Everything else here is fake. The parties, the conversations, the friendships, but not you." Ella gently pulled her hand away. "Good night, Mr. Wexley." The next morning, Ella reported to the laundry room. The work was exhausting. Washing, wringing, and hanging heavy, wet linens all day in the hot, humid room. By evening, her hands were red and raw, her back aching from bending over the wash tubs. For a week, she kept her head down and did her work. She avoided the main house and ate her meals quickly in the servants' hall, then retreated to her small room. One evening, As she was hanging the last of the day's laundry, she found a small package tucked inside a pillowcase. Her hands trembled as she unwrapped it. Inside was a book of poems, a silk ribbon, and a note in elegant handwriting. "I don't want anything from you, just your smile, if you ever feel safe enough to give it to me." Ella held the note to her chest, tears filling her eyes. No one had ever given her a gift before, let alone one so thoughtful. She looked up at the main house, wondering which window was his. Did he watch her from there? The thought should have made her uncomfortable, but instead it filled her with a strange warmth. That night, she read the poems by candlelight, the words filling her mind with beauty and her heart with longing. The next morning, Ella took a tray of bread to the kitchen. Her path took her past the old willow tree near the edge of the lawn. Caleb sat there, a bee-hook open on his lap, though his eyes weren't on the pages. He looked up as she approached, his face carefully neutral. Ella slowed her steps. She knew she should walk past without acknowledging him. It was the safe thing to do, but instead she stopped. She turned toward him, and for the first time she deliberately smiled at him, a real smile meant just for him. Caleb stood up, his book falling forgotten to the ground. "I've been waiting for that," he said, H's voice full of wonder. Ella tilted her head. "Why?" And Caleb Wexley, heir to Wexley Hill, smiled back with more joy than he'd felt in years. "Because it's the only thing I've ever wanted that wasn't handed to me." For a long moment, Caleb and Ella stood beneath the willow tree, their smiles mirroring each other. Around them, the morning breeze rustled the leaves, creating a private world just for them. "I should go," Ella finally said, nodding toward Heir's tray of bread. "The kitchen is waiting for this." "Will you come back?" Caleb asked, his voice hopeful. "When your work is done?" Ella hesitated. "I don't know if that's wise, Mr. Wexley. Please call me Caleb, at least when we're alone." She looked around nervously. "Someone might see us." "Meet me here tonight," he suggested. "After dark, when everyone's asleep. No one will know. Your mother doesn't need to know everything about my life," he said firmly. "Please, Ella, just to talk." The sincerity in his eyes weakened her resolve. "I'll try," she said softly, then hurried away toward the kitchen. All day, as Ella worked in the hot laundry room, her mind kept returning to Caleb's invitation. Part of her knew she should stay away. Getting involved with the son of the house could only lead to trouble. But another part, the part that had stayed up reading his gift of poetry by candlelight, desperately wanted to see him again. By evening, she had made her decision. After the other servants had gone to bed, Ella slipped out of the quarters and made her way across the dark lawn to the willow tree. Caleb was already there, sitting on a blanket he'd spread on the ground. A small lantern provided just enough light to see his face light up when she approached. "You came," he said, standing quickly. "I shouldn't be here," Ella replied, wringing her hands. "If anyone finds out—" "They won't," he assured her. "Sit with me, just for a little while." Ella sat down on the edge of the blanket, keeping a proper distance between them. "Did you really mean what you wrote in your note?" "Every word," Caleb said. "I don't expect anything from you, Ella. I just enjoy your company." "But why me? There are dozens of young ladies in town who would be thrilled to have your attention." Caleb leaned back against the tree trunk. "Those women don't see me. They see the Wexley name, the money, the position. To them, I'm a prize to be won." He looked at her directly. "You're the only person who treats me like a human being." "That's because I know what it's like to be seen as something less," Ella said quietly. They talked for hours that night, their conversation flowing easily despite their different backgrounds. Caleb told her about the pressure of being the Wexley heir, the expectations that had been placed on HM since childhood. Ella shared stories of her own family. Her mother, who had worked at Wexley Hill until she passed away 2 years ago. Her father, who had died in a factory accident when she was a child. When the night grew cold, Caleb insisted she take his jacket. The warmth of it enveloped her, carrying his scent. "I should go back," Ella said reluctantly. "It's late." "Will you meet me again?" Caleb asked. "Tomorrow night?" She knew she should say no. Found herself nodding instead. "Tomorrow night." Their secret meetings continued for weeks. Every night they would meet under the willow tree and talk until the early hours of the morning. Sometimes Caleb would bring books to read to her. Other times they would simply sit in comfortable silence, enjoying each other's company. One night, Caleb brought a small radio. "I thought we could listen to some music," he explained, turning the dial until soft music filled the air. "I've never danced with anyone before," Ella admitted when he held out his hand to her. "I'll teach you," he said gently. In the soft glow of the lantern they swayed together, their bodies drawing closer with each movement. When Caleb's hand settled on the small of her back, Ella felt a warmth spread through her entire body. "You're a natural," he whispered, his face close to hers. Later, as he walked her back toward the servants' quarters, their fingers brushed against each other. Caleb took her hand in his, entwining their fingers. "Is this okay?" he asked. Ella nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. At the edge of the servants' area, hidden by shadows, Caleb gently raised her hand to his lips. "Good night, Ella," he said softly. "Good night, Caleb," she replied, saying his name aloud for the first time. The smile that spread across his face was worth any risk. But their secret couldn't stay hidden forever. Martha noticed the change in Ella first, the dreamy looks, the smiles for no reason, the way she hummed happily even while doing the hardest work. "You're glowing, child," Martha said one morning as they prepared breakfast for the staff, "like you're lit from within. What's got you so happy?" Ella blushed. "Nothing, just feeling good, that's all." Martha gave her a knowing look. "I've known you since you were a girl, Ella Mason. Don't think you can fool me." "It's nothing, really," Ella insisted, but Martha wasn't convinced. "Be careful," she warned. "Whatever, or whoever it is, be careful." The warning should have sobered Ella, but she was too far gone in her feelings for Caleb. Each night with him made her fall deeper. Each touch of his hand made her heart race faster. Meanwhile, in the main house, Victoria Wexley was growing suspicious of her son's behavior. Caleb had always been reserved, but lately he seemed different, distracted during family meals, declining invitations to social events, disappearing for hours with vague explanations. "Something's going on with Caleb," Victoria said to her husband one evening in their bedroom. "He turned down dinner with the Sullivans again." Richard Wexley barely looked up from his newspaper. "The boy's entitled to some freedom, Victoria." "Not when it interferes with our plans for him," she replied sharply. "The merger with Sullivan Bank depends on his relationship with Eleanor." Richard sighed. "He's young, give him time." "Time is exactly what we don't have. George Sullivan won't wait forever, and neither will his daughter." Victoria crossed to the window, looking out at the dark grounds of the estate. In the distance, she noticed a small light near the old willow tree. Narrowing her eyes, she watched as the light moved slowly toward the servants' quarters, then separated into two, one continuing to the quarters, the other returning to the main house. Her suspicions aroused, Victoria decided to keep a closer watch on her son. The next day, she called the housekeeper to her sitting room. "Mrs. Potter, has there been any unusual behavior among the staff lately?" The housekeeper thought for a moment. "Nothing I can think of, ma'am. Everyone has been performing their duties as expected." "What about the girl in the laundry? Ella, is it? How has her work been?" "Excellent, ma'am. She's very diligent." Victoria tapped her fingers on the armrest. "Keep an eye on her, Mrs. Potter. Report anything unusual." That night, Victoria stayed awake, watching from her window. Shortly after midnight, she saw Caleb slip out of the house and head toward the willow tree. 20 minutes later, a slim figure from the direction of the servants' quarters, Joe, eyed him. Victoria's blood ran cold. Her suspicions confirmed, she began planning her response. The following morning, she summoned Richard to her sitting room. "We have a problem," she announced. "Our son is consorting with one of the servants." Richard looked up from his coffee, surprised. "What are you talking about?" "I saw them last night, meeting in secret under the willow tree." "Who?" "The laundry girl, Ella Mason." Richard waved dismissively. "You're overreacting, Victoria. Caleb wouldn't risk his position for a servant." "I know what I saw," Victoria insisted. "This explains everything. His disinterest in Eleanor, his distracted behavior. The girl has somehow gotten her hooks into him. "What do you suggest we do?" Richard asked, finally taking her seriously. Victoria's face hardened. "First, we remove the temptation. The girl will be dismissed immediately. And Caleb, leave him to me. It's time." He remembered his responsibilities to this family. Later that day, while Ella was working in the laundry room, Mrs. Potter appeared at the door. "Ella, Mrs. Wexley wants to see you. Now." Ella's heart sank. She wiped her hands on her apron and followed the housekeeper to the main house, her legs feeling like lead with each step. Victoria was waiting in her study, her face a mask of cold anger. "Close the door," she instructed Mrs. Potter, who then left him alone. Ella stood nervously, her hands clasped in front of her. "Do you know why I've called you here?" Victoria asked. "No, ma'am," Ella replied, though she feared she did know. "Don't lie to me," Victoria snapped. "I saw you last night, meeting my son in secret." Ella's face paled. "Mrs. Wexley, Be quiet," Victoria cut her off. "You are dismissed from your position, effective immediately. You will collect your belongings and be off this property within the hour." "Please, Mrs. Wexley," Ella begged, tears filling her eyes. "It's not what you think." "Oh, you weren't sneaking around with my son behind my back, after I specifically warned you to keep your distance from him." "We were just talking," Ella protested weakly. Victoria laughed coldly. "Do you really expect me to believe that? A girl like you with nothing to offer but her charms? I know exactly what you're after." "That's not true. I see are about him." "Care about him?" Victoria's voice dripped with disdain. "Or care about his money, his position, the comfortable life you could have if you managed to trap him?" "I would never." "You're dismissed," Victoria repeated firmly, "without a reference. And if you attempt to contact my son again, I'll make sure you never find work in this county." Ella's tears flowed freely now. "Please, Mrs. Wexley, this job is all I have. Where will I go?" "That's not my concern," Victoria replied coldly. "You should have thought of that before you set your sights on my son." Devastated, Ella returned to the servants' quarters to pack her few belongings. Martha found her there, folding her clothes into a small suitcase. "What's happened?" Martha asked, alarmed. "Mrs. Wexley has dismissed me," Ella said, her voice breaking. "She saw me with Caleb last night." Martha closed her eyes briefly. "Oh, child, I was afraid of this." "I don't know what to do, Martha," Ella sobbed. "I have nowhere to go." The older woman put her arms around Ella. "My sister runs a boarding house in town. I'll write to her. She'll give you a room until you find another position." "Mrs. Wexley said she won't give me a reference." Martha's face hardened. "That woman, after all your years of service." She patted Ella's shoulder. "Don't worry, we'll figure something out." An hour later, Ella stood at the gates of Wexley Hill, her suitcase in hand. She looked back at the grand house one last time, her heart breaking at the thought of never seeing Caleb again. As the sun began to set, she walked the long road to town, uncertain of what the future held. Meanwhile, Caleb returned from a business meeting in town, unaware of what had transpired. When he entered the house, his father was waiting for him in the study. "We need to talk, son," Richard said gravely. "What's wrong?" Caleb asked, setting down his briefcase. "Your mother saw you last night with the laundry girl." Caleb's face tightened. "Her name is Ella." "I don't care what her name is," Richard replied sharply. "What were you thinking, Caleb? Sneaking around with a servant?" "I wasn't sneaking around," Caleb defended. "We were talking, getting to know each other." Richard shook his head. "Do you have any idea how this looks? The Wexley heir consorting with the help. It's a scandal waiting to happen." "I don't care how it looks," Caleb shot back. "Ella is kind, intelligent and genuine. More than I can say for most of the people we associate with." "Listen to yourself," Richard said, his voice rising. "You sound like a lovesick schoolboy, not the future head of this family." "Maybe I don't want to be the future head of this family," Caleb replied. "Not if it means living by these ridiculous rules." Richard slammed his hand on the desk. "Enough! Your mother has already handled the situation. The girl has been dismissed." Caleb froze. "What did you say?" "She's gone. Packed her things and left the estate an hour ago." You fired her? Caleb's voice was dangerously quiet. Without even talking to me first? It was necessary, Richard insisted. The girl was clearly after your money. Her name is Ella. Caleb interrupted, his anger building. And Dee, she's never asked me for a thing, not once. That's how these things start, Richard said dismissively. They play innocent, make you feel special. Then before you know it, they're pregnant with your child and demanding marriage. Caleb's fists clenched. You don't know her at all. I know her type, Richard replied. Your mother made the right decision. Caleb turned to leave, but Richard called after him. Where are you going? To find her, Caleb said without turning around. If you walk out that door, you can forget about your inheritance, Richard threatened. Caleb paused, then looked back at his father. Keep it. I never wanted it anyway. He strode out of the study, ignoring his father's shouts. In the hallway, he nearly collided with his mother. Caleb, we need to discuss. How could you? He demanded, his voice shaking with anger. How could you fire her without even giving her a chance? T.O. explain. Victoria's face hardened. I did what was necessary to protect this family. That girl was using you, Caleb. No, she wasn't. Ella is the only honest person I've ever known, the only one who sees me for who I am, not what I can give her. You're being naive, Victoria said coldly. Girls like her know exactly how to manipulate men like you. I'm going to find her, Caleb stated firmly, and when I do, I'm going to ask her to marry me. Victor Heir gasped. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. We'll cut you off, Victoria threatened. You'll have nothing, no money, no position, no connections. Caleb smiled grimly. Then I'll finally be free. He pushed past her and headed for the door. Behind him, Victoria called out desperately, The Sullivans are coming for dinner tomorrow. Eleanor is expecting you. Caleb didn't even look back. In town, Ella had wreaked the boarding house run by Martha's sister, Mrs. Jenkins. It was a simple building on a quiet street, nothing like the grandeur of Wexley Hill. Martha sent word about your situation, Mrs. Jenkins said kindly, showing Ella to a small attic room. You can stay here while you look for work. Thank you, Ella said, setting down her suitcase. I'll try not to be a burden. Nonsense. Any friend of Martha's is welcome here. Mrs. Jenkins patted her arm. RS tonight. Tomorrow, we'll see about finding you a new position. Alone in the small room, Ella finally let herself break down completely. She cried for the job she had lost, for the home that had been taken from her, and most of all, for Caleb, whom she would likely never see again. She took out the book of poems he had given her, running her fingers over the pages. Inside the cover, she found a pressed wildflower she hadn't noticed before, with a small N. Heart, like this flower you bring unexpected beauty to this place. See. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. A knock on her door startled her. Mrs. Jenkins stood there with a cup of tea. I thought you might need this, she said, setting the cup on the small table by the bed. And there's someone downstairs asking for you. Ella's heart leapt. Who is it? A young man, well-dressed. Says his name is Caleb Wexley. Ella's hand flew to her mouth. He's here. Mrs. Jenkins nodded. Shall I send him up? No, I'll come down, Ella said, quickly wiping her tears and straightening her dress. She followed Mrs. Jenkins down the narrow stairs to the small sitting room, and there, standing by the window, was Caleb. When he turned and saw her, his face flooded with relief. Ella, he breathed. Mrs. Jenkins discreetly left the room, closing the door behind her. What are you doing here? Ella asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Looking for you, Caleb said, crossing the room to stand before her. My father told me what happened. I'm so sorry, Ella. You shouldn't be here, she said, though her heart sang at the sight of him. Your parents, I don't care what they think, Caleb interrupted. They were wrong to dismiss you, wrong about everything. They're your family, Ella reminded him. You can't just turn your back on them. I can, if they refuse to accept what matters to me. He took her hands in his. And you matter to me, Ella, more than anything. Ella shook her head, trying to be strong despite the joy his words brought her. Be reasonable, Caleb. You're a Wexley. I'm nobody. Don't say that, he said fiercely. "You're everything to me. What about your inheritance, your future? None of it means anything without you." Ella pulled her hands away, turning to face the window. "This is crazy. We've only known each other for a few weeks. And in those weeks, I've felt more alive than I have in my entire life," Caleb said, moving to stand behind her. "When I'm with you, I'm not the Wexley heir. I'm just Caleb, and that's all I want to be." Ella turned back to him, tears in her eyes. "What are you saying?" Caleb took a deep breath. "I'm saying I love you, Ella, and I want to spend my life with you if you'll have me." "But how would we live? Where would we go? I have some money of my own, enough to get us started somewhere new, somewhere far from here, where no one knows the Wexley name." "You'd give up everything for me?" Ella asked, disbelieving. "I'd be gaining everything," Caleb corrected her. He took her face gently in his hands. "Tell me you don't feel the same, and I'll walk away right now." Ella looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity there, the love, the hope. "I can't tell you that," she whispered. "I see, because I do feel the same. I love you, Caleb." His smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. Slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted to, he leaned down and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was gentle at first, then deepened as they both gave in to the feelings they'd been holding back for so long. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathless. "Marry me, Ella," Caleb said softly. "Not next year, not when things calm down. Now. Tonight." "Tonight?" Ella gasped. "Is that even possible?" "I know a minister in the next town who would do it. We could be there in an hour." Ella's head was spinning. "This is happening so fast." "I know," Caleb acknowledged. "And if you need time to think, I understand. But I know what I want, Ella. I want you, for the rest of my life." Ella looked into his eyes and saw their future there. Uncertain, perhaps difficult, but filled with love. Real love. The kind she had never dared to dream of. "Yes," she said finally, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. "Yes, I'll marry you." Caleb pulled her into his arms, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around. Their laughter filled the small room, bright and joyous in the face of all the obstacles before them. As the sun set over the town, they slipped away together, leaving Wexley Hill and all its rigid rules behind them. Back at the estate, Victoria Wexley paced the floor of the grand entrance hall, her face tight with worry. "He's been gone for hours," she said to her husband. "Where could he have gone?" Richard Wexley sat heavily in a chair. "He's a grown man, Victoria. He'll come back when he's ready." "And if he doesn't?" she asked, her voice uncharacteristically vulnerable. "If he chooses that girl over his family? Then we'll have failed as parents," Richard said simply, "and we'll have to live with that." Outside, storm clouds gathered on the horizon, mirroring the tension in the Wexley household. But miles away, Caleb and Ella drove toward their future, the road ahead illuminated by nothing but hope and the promise of tomorrow. Rain pattered against the windows of the small church as Caleb and Ella stood before the minister. The only witnesses to their wedding were the minister's wife and the elderly church caretaker, who had been hastily called in from his evening meal. "Do you, Caleb Richard Wexley, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" the minister asked, his voice echoing in the nearly empty church. Caleb's eyes never left Ella's face. "I do," he said firmly. "And do you, Ella Marie Mason, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Ella's voice trembled slightly. "I do. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife," the minister declared. "You may kiss the bride." Their kiss was gentle and sweet, filled with promise. When they pulled apart, Ella saw tears in Caleb's eyes that matched her own. "Mrs. Wexley," he whispered, touching her cheek. Ella laughed softly. "That will take some getting used to." After signing the marriage certificate and thanking the minister, they stepped out into the rainy night. "Where to now?" Ella asked, reality beginning to set in. They had no home, no plan beyond this moment. Caleb took her hand. "I know a small hotel in town. We can stay there tonight and figure out our next steps in the morning." The hotel was modest but clean, nothing like the luxury Caleb had grown up with. The desk clerk raised his eyebrows at the young couple, checking in with no luggage, but Caleb's cash payment quieted any questions. In their room, Ella stood nervously by the window, watching the rain streak down the GL. Ass. The enormity of what they had done was finally hitting her. "Are you having regrets?" Caleb asked quietly, coming to stand behind her. She turned to face him. "No, but I'm scared, Caleb. Everything's happened so fast." He took her hands in his. "I know. And I'm sorry for that, but not sorry that we're together. What will we do? Where will we go?" "I have a friend in Boston," Caleb said. "He's been trying to get me to join his business for years. I see and send him a telegram in the morning." "Boston," Ella repeated. "That's so far away." "It's a fresh start," Caleb said. "No one there knows the Wexleys. We can be whoever we want to be." Ella nodded, trying to calm her racing heart. "And what about your parents? Will you tell them about us?" Caleb's face hardened slightly. "They'll find out soon enough, but I don't want to think about them tonight." His expression softened as he looked at her. "Tonight is just about us." He leaned down to kiss her, and Ella melted into his embrace, her fears temporarily forgotten. The next morning, they ate breakfast in the small hotel dining room, making plans for their future. Caleb would telegraph his friend in Boston and arrange for train tickets. Ella would need clothes and other necessities for the journey. "I have some money saved," she offered. "Not much, but it's something." Caleb shook his head. "Keep it. I have enough for now." He reached across the table to take her hand. "Besides, what's mine is yours now, remember?" After breakfast, Caleb went to send his telegram while Ella waited in their room. Alone with her thoughts, doubts began to creep in. Had she made a terrible mistake? Would Caleb eventually regret giving up his family and fortune for her? She was still wrestling with these thoughts when a knock came at the door. Thinking it was Caleb returning, she opened it without hesitation. Instead, she found herself face to face with Victoria Wexley. Ella gasped, stepping back. "Mrs. Wexley!" Victoria pushed past her into the room, her face a mask of cold fury. "Where is my son?" she demanded. "He's not here," Ella managed to say, her heart pounding. Victoria looked around the modest room with disdain. "So this is where he's been hiding you. How touching." "How did you find us?" Ella asked. "Meadowbrook is a small, old town, and the Wexleys have eyes everywhere," Victoria said coldly. "Did you really think you could just disappear with my son?" Ella lifted her chin. "Caleb made his own choice." "A choice he'll soon regret," Victoria snapped. "What can you possibly offer him? A life of poverty and struggle. He's used to the best of everything." "I can offer him love," Ella said simply. "Something he never got from you." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "Love? Is that what you call it? You've seduced and manipulated a naive young man for your own gain." "That's not true," Ella protested. "Then prove it," Victoria challenged. "If you truly love my son, you'll let him go. Let him return to his family, his rightful place." "I can't make that decision for him." "Of course you can," Victoria pressed. "Tell him you've changed your mind, that you don't want to be with him after all." Ella shook her head. "I won't lie to him." Victoria's voice turned silky. "What if I made it worth your while? Name your price." "My price?" Ella repeated, shocked. Victoria opened her purse and pulled out a checkbook. "Everyone has a price, Ella. What's yours?" $5,000, 10. "Enough to set yourself up comfortably somewhere far from here." Ella stared at her in disbelief. "You think I'm with Caleb for money?" "Why else would a girl like you pursue the heir to one of the largest fortunes in the county?" Victoria asked coolly. Ella's anger flared. "I never pursued him. We fell in love, something you probably wouldn't understand." "Love," Victoria scoffed. "A convenient excuse for fortune hunters." "I don't want your money," Ella said firmly, "and I won't leave Caleb unless he asks me to." Victoria's face hardened. "Then perhaps you should know what you're really getting into." She walked to the window, her back straight and rigid. "The Wexley Fort Yuan isn't what it once was." "What do you mean?" "Richard has made some unfortunate investments in recent years. The merger with Sullivan Bank was meant to save us from financial ruin." Victoria turned back to face Ella. By marrying you, Caleb hasn't just turned his back on his family. He's given up the only chance we had to save everything. Ella felt a chill run through her. I don't believe you. It doesn't matter what you believe, Victoria said, oldly. The truth remains. Without the Sullivan merger, Wexley Hill will be lost within a year. The businesses will fold. Dozens of people like you, Ella, will lose their jobs. Before Ella could respond, the door opened and Caleb walked in. He froze at the sight of his mother. What are you doing here? He demanded. Victoria turned to her son, her expression immediately softening. Caleb, darling, I've been so worried. How did you find us? He asked Ed, moving to stand beside Ella. Your father has connections at the telegraph office, Victoria admitted. They informed him when you sent a message to Boston. Caleb's jaw tightened. So you're spying on me now? We're concerned about you, Victoria corrected. You disappeared without a word, abandoned your responsibilities. I left a note, Caleb interrupted, explaining that I was marrying Ella. Victoria's face paled. Marrying? She looked between them, noticing for the first time the simple gold band on Ella's finger. You can't be serious. We were married last night, Caleb confirmed, putting his arm around Ella's waist. Ella is my wife now. Victoria sank into a chair, pressing a hand to her forehead. This is a disaster. It's done, Mother, Caleb said firmly, and we're leaving for Boston tomorrow. Victoria looked up, her eyes suddenly desperate. Caleb, please, you don't understand what's at stake. I understand perfectly, he replied. You want me to marry Eleanor Sullivan to secure the merger, but I won't sacrifice my happiness for a business deal. It's not just a business deal, Victoria said, her voice breaking slightly. It's our survival, your father's investments. What about them? Caleb asked sharply. Victoria glanced at Ella, then back to her son. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. Anything you have to say, you can say in front of my wife, Caleb insisted. Victoria's lips thinned, but she continued. Your father has been taking risks. Big ones. The recession hit us harder than anyone knows. The Sullivan merger was meant to be our safety net. Caleb stared at his mother in disbelief. Are you saying we're in financial trouble? More than trouble, Victoria admitted quietly. Without the merger, we'll lose everything, the house, the businesses, all of it. Caleb ran, a hand through his hair, processing this new information. Why didn't you tell me? Your father wouldn't allow it, Victoria said. He was certain he could fix things before anyone found out. He didn't want to worry you. So instead, you tried to force me into a marriage with Eleanor. We did what we thought was necessary, Victoria defended. For the family, for our legacy. Caleb shook his head in disgust. And you still don't get it, do you? You're so focused on the Wexley name, the Wexley fortune, that you've forgotten what really matters. What matters is not watching everything your father and I have built crumble to nothing, Victoria said sharply. What matters is being with someone I love, Caleb countered. Someone who loves me for who I am, not what I can provide. Victoria turned to Ella, her eyes cold. And do you love my son enough to watch him lose everything? To see him struggle when he's never had to work a day in his life? Before Ella could answer, Caleb spoke up. I'm not helpless, Mother. I can work. I can build something new. You have no idea what the real world is like, Victoria said dismissively. Maybe not, Caleb acknowledged, but I'm willing to learn. He took Ella's hand. With Ella by my side. Victoria stood up, straightening her coat. I see there's no reasoning with you. Not today. She moved toward the door, then Paul said, But think about this, Caleb. It's not just your future at stake. It's the livelihood of every person who depends on the Wexley businesses. Every servant at Wexley Hill, every worker in the factories. She glanced pointedly at Ella. Think about whether your happiness is worth their suffering. With that parting shot, she left, closing the door firmly behind her. The silence that followed was heavy. Caleb paced the small room, his face troubled. Do you think she's telling the truth? Ella asked quietly. About your family's finances? I don't know, Caleb admitted. My father has always been secretive about business matters, but I've never known my mother to lie about something so serious. What if she is telling the truth? Ella pressed. What if people do lose their jobs because of us? Caleb stopped pacing to look at her. That's not our fault. It's my father's poor decisions that put them at risk, not our marriage. But if marrying Eleanor could save them— Don't, Caleb said firmly, taking her hands. Don't let her manipulate you. That's what she's trying to do, make you feel guilty enough to leave me. I would never leave you, Ella assured him. But I don't want to be responsible for other people's hardship either. Caleb pulled her close. We're not responsible, and we can't live our lives based on my parents' schemes. He kissed Heir's forehead. I got a response from my friend in Boston. He's offered me a job at his shipping company. We can leave tomorrow. Ella nodded against his chest, trying to push away the doubts Victoria had planted. Then we'll go to Boston, she said softly, and start our new life. But that night, as Caleb slept beside her, Ella lay awake, Victoria's words echoing in her mind. Was their happiness worth the cost to others? Did she have the right to take Caleb away from his responsibilities? The next morning they boarded the train to Boston. As they settled into their seats, Ella noticed how out of place Caleb looked among the ordinary travelers. His tailored clothes, his confident manner, everything about him screamed wealth and privilege. Second thoughts? He asked, noticing her pensive expression. She smiled reassuringly. No, just taking it all in. This is really happening. It really is, he agreed, squeezing her hand. Our new beginning. As the train pulled away from the station, Ella caught a glimpse of a black car parked nearby. A woman stood beside it watching the train. Even from a distance, she recognized Victoria Wexley's straight-backed posture. Ella quickly looked away, not wanting Caleb to see. Their new life was just beginning. The past, and Victoria Wexley, needed to stay behind them. Boston was everything Meadowbrook wasn't. Loud, crowded, and bustling with energy. Caleb's friend, Thomas Harrington, met them at the station, a jovial man with a hearty laugh. "Caleb Wexley, as I live and breathe," he exclaimed, pulling Caleb into a back-slapping hug. "And this must be the bride who stole you away from all those debutantes back home." "Thomas, meet my wife, Ella," Caleb said proudly. "Ella, this is Thomas Harrington, my oldest friend." Thomas bowed gallantly over Ella's hand. "Charmed, Mrs. Wexley. Anyone who can convince this stubborn fool to leave that mausoleum of a house is a miracle worker in my book." Ella liked him immediately. "Thank you for helping us, Mr. Harrington." "Please, it's Thomas, and it's my pleasure. I've been trying to get Caleb to join my business for years." He picked up their bags. "Come on, I've arranged an apartment for you. Nothing fancy, but it's in a decent neighborhood." The apartment was indeed modest, 3 small rooms on the 3rd floor of a brick building. After the grandeur of Wexley Hill, it seemed tiny, but it was clean and bright. "It's perfect," Ella said, genuinely pleased. It was their first home together. Thomas left them to settle in, with instructions for Caleb to come to the office the following morning. "Well, Mrs. Wexley," Caleb said, pulling Ella into his arms once they were alone, "what do you think of our new home?" "I love it," she replied honestly. "Why? It's ours." That night, as they lay in their new bed, Caleb traced patterns on Ella's bare shoulder. "Are you happy?" he asked softly. "Yes," she answered, and meant it. Despite the simplicity of their surroundings, she felt a contentment she had never known before. The next morning, Caleb dressed for his first day of work. He looked slightly uncomfortable in the simpler clothes Thomas had suggested he wear. "How do I look?" he asked, adjusting his collar. "Like a working man," Ella said with a smile. "Very handsome." After he left, Ella explored their neighborhood. The streets were crowded with people from all walks of life. She found the market, a small library, and a park where children played. When Caleb returned that evening, he was full of excitement about his new job. "Thomas has put me in charge of customer relations," he explained over dinner. "Apparently my Wexley charm, as he calls it, is perfect for securing new clients." "That's wonderful," Ella said, genuinely happy for him. "And how was your day?" he asked. "Did you explore our new kingdom?" Ella told him about her adventures in the neighborhood, leaving out the stares she had received from some of the wealthier women who had clearly pegged her as an outsider. As the weeks passed, they settled into a routine. Caleb went to work each day, while Ella kept their small apartment in order. She learned to cook simple meals and manage their household budget. skills she had never needed before. One evening, Caleb came home with a newspaper from Meadowbrook. "Thomas had a client from back home," he explained, setting it on the table. "I thought you might like to see news from there." Ella flipped through the pages, stopping suddenly at a headline. "Wexley Industries announces layoffs." The article detailed how Richard Wexley had been forced to cut a quarter of his workforce due to financial difficulties. The Sullivan merger had fallen through, and rumors of bankruptcy swirled around the once mighty Wexley name. "Caleb," Ella said quietly, pushing the paper toward him, "look at this." He read the article, his face growing serious. So Mother was telling the truth. "All those people without jobs," Ella murmured, "and your family home." "Hey, it's not our fault," Caleb said firmly, though his voice lacked conviction. That night, Ella lay awake long after Caleb had fallen asleep. The newspaper article had confirmed her worst fears. People were suffering because of their decision to marry, to pursue their own happiness. The next morning, she rose early and wrote a letter. After Caleb left for work, she took it to the post office, addressing it to Victoria Wexley at Wexley Hill. 2 weeks later, a response arrived. Ella hid it in her apron pocket until she W as alone, then read it with trembling hands. Victoria's reply was brief and to the point. "If you truly care for my son, you know what must be done. The enclosed train ticket is one way. Come alone." Enclosed was a ticket to Meadowbrook, dated for the following day. Ella sat for a long time, the letter in her lap, tears streaming down her face. Finally, she made her decision. When Caleb came home that evening, she forced herself to smile and act normally. They ate dinner together, talked about their day, and made plans for the weekend. As they prepared for bed, Caleb pulled her close. "I love you, Ella Wexley," he whispered, "more than anything in this world." Ella blinked back tears. "I love you too," she said, memorizing the feeling of his arms around her. "Always." The next morning, after Caleb left for work, Ella packed a small bag. She wrote him a letter, her tears smudging the ink in places. "My dearest Caleb, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Please believe that this is the hardest thing I've ever done, but I must return to Meadowbrook. Your mother has shown me that our happiness has come at too high a price. The people who depend on your family's businesses are suffering. I cannot bear the weight of that knowledge. I release you from our marriage. Go back to your family, save what can be saved. Know that I will love you until my last breath, but sometimes love means letting go. Forgive me. Ella." She placed the letter on his pillow, took one last look around the small apartment that had been their home, and left to catch the train back to Meadowbrook. Victoria Wexley was waiting at the station when Ella arrived, looking tired but triumphant. "You made the right decision," she said, leading Ella to her waiting car. "I didn't do it for you," Ella replied coldly. "I did it for the people who lost their jobs." "The reason doesn't matter," Victoria said. "What matters is that you've finally come to your senses." "What happens now?" Ella asked. "Now you disappear," Victoria stated matter-of-factly. "I've arranged a position for you in a household in Philadelphia, far enough away that Caleb won't find you." Ella's heart ached at the thought. "And what will you tell him?" "That you left him. That you couldn't handle the simple life after all." Victoria's smile was cold. "He'll be hurt, of course, but he'll come home where he belongs, and in time he'll thank me." Ella doubted that very much, but she remained silent. She had made her choice, painful as it was. Now she had to live with it. Back in Boston, Caleb returned home from work, calling out Ella's name as he entered their apartment. When she didn't answer, he moved through the rooms, a sense of unease growing. "Ella?" he called again, entering their bedroom. Then he saw the letter on his pillow. As he read her words, his face drained of color. "No," he whispered, sinking onto the bed. "No, no, no." He read the letter again, looking for clues, for some hint of where she might have gone. The mention of his mother made his blood run cold. Victoria had gotten to her somehow. Crumpling the letter in his fist, Caleb made a decision. He would go back to Meadowbrook. He would find Ella. And this time, no one, not his mother, not his father, not even Ella herself, would separate them again. Meanwhile at Wexley Hill, Victoria Wexley sat in her study, writing a letter of her own. It was addressed to Caleb, explaining that Ella had come to her, confessing that she had made a terrible mistake, that she had realized she wasn't cut out to be a Wexley after all, that she had asked Victoria to help her disappear. Victoria sealed the envelope with a satisfied smile. By the time Caleb received it, Ella would be long gone, untraceable in the vastness of Philadelphia. Her son would be hurt, yes, but he would heal. He would come home, and everything would return to the way it should be, or so she thought. What Victoria didn't know was that someone else had witnessed Ella's return to Meadowbrook, someone who had recognized her immediately and wondered why the new Mrs. Wexley was back in town without her husband, someone who had seen her leave with Victoria. Martha, who had been shopping in town, watched the scene unfold from across the street, and Martha, unlike Victoria, knew exactly what it meant when a woman looked as heartbroken as Ella had. As Victoria's CAR drove away, Martha made her own decision. She would send a telegram to Boston, to Caleb Wexley, because some things were more important than knowing your place. Some things, like true love, were worth fighting for, and the battle for Ella and Caleb's future had only just begun. The telegram arrived at Thomas Harrington's office just as Caleb was preparing to leave for Meadowbrook. "This just came for you," Thomas said, handing the yellow envelope to his FRI end. "From someone named Martha." Caleb tore it open, his eyes scanning the brief message. "Ella back in Meadowbrook with your mother, leaving for Philadelphia tomorrow. Hurry, Martha." "I knew it," Caleb muttered, crumpling the telegram in his fist. "My mother's behind this." "What's happened?" Thomas asked, concerned by the dark look on his friend's face. "Ella's gone," Caleb said, his voice tight with anger. "She left me a letter saying it was over, that she was going back to Meadowbrook. But this confirms what I suspected. My mother got to her somehow." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going home," Caleb said grimly, "and I'm getting my wife back." Thomas clapped him on the shoulder. "Then you'd better hurry, the afternoon train leaves in 30 minutes. Caleb nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Thomas, for everything." "Just bring her back," Thomas replied. "You two deserve to be happy." At Wexley Hill, Victoria Wexley was in her study when her husband entered without knocking. "What have you done, Victoria?" Richard Wexley demanded, waving a piece of paper. "Martha just gave her notice after 20 years of service." Victoria barely looked up from her desk. "People come and go. We'll find a replacement. She said she can no longer work for a family that would separate a man from his wife," Richard continued, his voice rising. "What is she talking about?" Victoria sighed, setting down her pen. "I suppose you'd find out eventually. Ella has returned to Meadowbrook." "Caleb's wife, she's here?" "Not for long," Victoria replied coolly. "I've arranged a position for her in Philadelphia. She leaves tomorrow." Richard stared at his wife in disbelief. "You brought her back without Caleb?" "She came of her own accord," Victoria insisted. "She realized she'd made a mistake." "And I'm sure you had nothing to do with it, that realization," Richard said sarcastically. "Victoria, what have you done?" "What needed to be done?" she snapped. "That girl was a distraction. With her gone, Caleb will come to his senses and return home." "And then what?" Richard demanded. "You think he'll forgive you for this, for sending his wife away?" "He'll thank me in time," Victoria said, though less confidently than before. "Once he understands what was at stake." Richard shook his head sideally. "You've gone too far this time. If we lose our son over this—" "We were already losing him," Victoria cut in. "At least this way there's a chance to save the family, to save everything we've built." "At what cost?" Richard asked quietly. "Our son's happiness? His trust? Is that worth any amount of money or status to you?" Before Victoria could answer, there was a knock at the door. Mrs. Potter, the housekeeper, entered looking flustered. "Excuse me, Mr. and Mrs. Wexley, but Miss Ella is gone." "What do you mean gone?" Victoria demanded, rising from her desk. "Her room is empty, her bag is missing, and the gardener says he saw her walking toward town about an hour ago." Victoria's face paled. "Find her. She can't have gotten far." As Mrs. Potter hurried out, Richard turned to his wife. "You see? You can't control everything, Victoria, not even a girl from the servants' quarters." Victoria grabbed her coat. "I'm going after her. She's not ruining my plans again." Meanwhile, Ella trudged along the road to town, her small suitcase heavy in her hand. After hearing Victoria's plan to send her to Philadelphia, she had realized the full extent of the woman's manipulation. Victoria had never intended to use Ella's return to save the factory workers or Wexley Hill. She simply wanted Ella gone, and Caleb back under her control. Ella had waited until the house was quiet, then slipped out through the kitchen door. She had no clear plan, only the certainty that she couldn't be part of Victoria's schemes any longer. She would find a way back to Boston, back to Caleb. She only hoped he would forgive her for leaving. As she reached the outskirts of town, a car slowed beside her. Ella tensed, expecting to see Victoria, but instead it was Martha who leaned out the window. "Ella, thank goodness I found you." "Martha, what are you doing here?" The older woman opened the passenger door. "Looking for you. Get in, quickly." Once Ella was inside, Martha drove toward town. "I sent a telegram to Caleb," she explained. "Told him you were here and about to be sent to Philadelphia." Ella's heart leapt. "You did? When?" "This morning. With any luck, he's already on his way." "Thank you," Ella said fervently. "But why would you help me? You could lose your job." Martha smiled grimly. "I already quit. Couldn't work for that woman anymore, not after what she did to you two." She glanced at Ella. "Besides, I've never seen the young Mr. Wexley smile the way he did when he looked at you. That's worth fighting for." They reached the train station just as a train was pulling in. Ella watched anxiously as passengers began to disembark, and then she saw him. Caleb, scanning the platform with desperate eyes. "Caleb!" she called out, running toward him. He turned, his face lighting up at the sight of her. "Ella!" They crashed into each other's arms, holding on as if they might be torn apart at any moment. "I'm so sorry," Ella sobbed against his chest. "I never should have left. Your mother said people were losing their jobs because of us, and I thought—" "Shh," Caleb soothed, stroking her hair. "None of that matters now. You're here. We're together." "But I left you," Ella said, pulling back to low okay at his face. "How can you forgive me so easily?" "Because I love you," Caleb said simply. "And because I know my mother. I knew she must have manipulated you somehow." Their reunion was interrupted by the screech of brakes. Victoria's car pulled up at the station entrance, and she emerged, her face thunderous when she spotted them. "Caleb!" she called out, striding toward them. "Thank goodness you're here. I've been trying to find Ella." "Stop," Caleb essayed coldly, positioning himself slightly in front of Ella. "I know what you did, Mother. I know you brought Ella back here under false pretenses." Victoria's expression faltered. "That's not true. She came willingly." "Tell him, Ella." "Because you made me believe I was responsible for people losing their jobs," Ella said. "You used my conscience against me." "I simply told you the truth," Victoria insisted. Without the Sullivan merger, Father's poor business decisions caught up with him," Caleb interrupted. "That's not Ella's fault. It's not my fault. And it's certainly not our marriage's fault." Victoria's face hardened. "You have responsibilities, Caleb, to your family, to your name." "My only responsibility now is to my wife," Caleb replied firmly. "Ella is my family. The rest of you are just people I'm related to." "You don't mean that," Victoria said, her voice suddenly vulnerable. "We're your parents. Parents who tried to control every aspect of my life, who tried to separate me from the woman I love." Caleb shook his head. "Those aren't parents I want in my life." Victoria took a step back as if she'd been slapped. "You would choose her over your own mother, over everything we've built for you." "In a heartbeat," Caleb replied without hesitation. Martha approached, having watched the scene unfold. "The next train to Boston leaves in 20 minutes, she told them quietly. Caleb nodded, then looked back at his mother. "Goodbye, Mother. Tell Father I wish him luck with the business. He'll need it." He took Ella's hand and turned to leave, but Victoria's voice stopped them. "Wait," she said, her voice uncharacteristically small. "Please." Something in her tone made them pause. "I was wrong," Victoria admitted, the words clearly difficult for her. "About everything. About you, Ella. About what would make Caleb happy." "It's too late for apologies," Caleb said, though his voice had softened slightly. "I know," Victoria acknowledged, But please, before you go, there's something you should know." She hesitated, then continued. "Your father sold the factories last week to George Sullivan." "What?" Caleb asked, surprised. "But I thought the merger fell through." "It did, but George made an offer for the factories anyway." He said. Victoria paused. "He said he was impressed by you, Caleb, by your integrity in choosing love over business. He wants you to manage them." Caleb looked skeptical. "Why would he want that?" "Because despite everything, you're still the best person for the job," came a new voice. They all turned to see Richard Wexley approaching, slightly out of breath. "I've been looking everywhere for you, Victoria." "Richard," she acknowledged stiffly. "I was just telling Caleb about George Sullivan's offer." Richard nodded, then turned to his son. "It's true. George wants you back, Caleb. Said he'd rather work with a man of principle than someone who can be bought." He smiled ruefully. "I believe he was referring to me." "So the factories are saved?" Ella asked. "The workers have their jobs back?" "Yes," Richard confirmed. "And Wexley Hill is safe too, for now at least." Caleb looked thoughtful. "And what about Eleanor Sullivan? Is she part of this deal too?" Richard shook his head. "No. George was quite clear that the offer had nothing to do with his daughter. In fact, she's apparently engaged to a count she met in Europe." "So what exactly are you asking of me?" Caleb questioned. "To come back and run the factories for Sullivan?" "We're asking you to come home," Victoria said quietly. "Both of you." Ella and Caleb exchanged surprised looks. "Both of us?" Ella repeated. "Ted?" Victoria nodded stiffly. "Yes, as much as it pains me to admit it, I was wrong about you, Ella. You were willing to give up your own happiness for people you barely knew. That shows a strength of character I didn't give you credit for." "And a kind of selflessness that reminds me of someone else I know," Richard added, looking at his son with newfound respect. Caleb still looked suspicious. "And you would accept Ella? As my wife? As a Wexley?" "We would try," Richard promised, "if you'll give us the chance." Caleb turned to Ella. "What do you think? It's your decision too." Ella looked from Caleb to his parents, weighing her options. She thought of their little apartment in Boston, the freedom they had there. But she also thought of the workers whose jobs would be secured if Caleb returned to manage the factories, of Martha and the other servants at Wexley Hill who had been kind to her. "We could try," she said slowly. "For a while. See if it works." Caleb studied her face. "Are you sure? We can go back to Boston right now if that's what you want." "I want to be with you," Ella said simply. "Whether that's in Boston or Meadowbrook doesn't matter as much as us being together." Caleb turned back to his parents. "We'll come back on a trial basis, but there will be conditions." "Name them," Richard said quickly, before Victoria could object. "First, Ella is my wife. She will be treated with respect by everyone, including you, Mother." Victoria nodded tightly. "Second, we'll live in the East Wing, separate from the main house. We need our privacy." "Of course," Richard agreed. "And finally," Caleb continued, "I'll manage the factories, but I want a real stake in them, not just a salary. A partnership with Sullivan." Richard hesitated, then nodded. "I'll speak to George. I think he'll agree." "Then we have a deal," Caleb said, extending his hand to his father. As they shook hands, Martha approached Ella. "Does this mean you're coming back to Wexley Hill?" she asked hopefully. "It seems so," Ella replied. "Will you come back too? I'll need a friendly face there." Martha smiled. "For you, dear, I might consider it." Victoria watched this exchange with a complicated expression. Finally, she stepped forward. "Ella," she said formally, "I owe you an apology. Her behavior has been inexcusable." Ella met her gaze steadily. "Yes, it has. I can't promise to be the mother-in-law you deserve right away," Victoria continued, "but I can promise to try, for Caleb's sake, and perhaps, in time, for yours as well." It wasn't much, but it was more than Ella had ever expected from Victoria Wexley. "Thank you," she said simply. As they prepared to leave the station, Caleb pulled Ella aside for a moment. "Are you really okay with this?" he asked quietly. "Going back to Wexley Hill, dealing with my mother every day." Ella smiled up at him. "I'm not naive, Caleb. It won't be easy, but nothing worth having ever is. She touched his face gently. Besides, we'll be together. That's all that matters. Caleb leaned down to kiss her, not caring who was watching. I love you, Ella Wexley, he whispered against her lips. And I love you, she replied, always. 6 months later, Wexel Eye Hill was transformed. Under Caleb's management, the factories were thriving again. George Sullivan had indeed offered him a partnership, impressed by the young man's innovative ideas and fair treatment of the workers. The east wing of the main house had been renovated into a comfortable apartment for Caleb and Ella. It was smaller than the rest of the mansion, but warm and inviting, filled with books and simple, beautiful things that reflected their tastes rather than the ostentatious luxury of the main house. Victoria Wexley had made efforts, in her own way, to accept Ella. There were still awkward moments and occasional sharp comments, but they had reached a kind of truce. Richard, for his part, had grown genuinely fond of his daughter-in-law, often seeking her sensible advice on matters both personal and professional. Martha had returned to Wexley Hill as Ella's personal housekeeper, a position created specifically for her. The other servants, taking to air cue from Martha, had accepted Ella as the new Mrs. Wexley with respect, and in many cases, real affection. On a crisp fall morning, Ella stood in the gardens of Wexley Hill, supervising the planting of new rose bushes, a project she had taken on to beautify the grounds. She had discovered a talent for garden design, and even Victoria had grudgingly admitted that her choices were not without merit. Caleb found her there, watching as the gardeners work. He slipped his arms around her waist from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. The gardens are looking beautiful, he commented, just like their designer. Ella smiled, leaning back against him. Flatterer. It's only flattery if it isn't true, he countered, kissing her cheek. How are you feeling today? Ella's hand moved to rest on her stomach, where the smallest of bumps was just beginning to show. Better. The morning sickness seems to be easing. The news of Ella's pregnancy had come as a surprise to everyone, not least to Ella herself. Victoria had received the announcement with mixed emotions, joy at the prospect of a Wexley heir, tempered by the realization that the child would be half Ella's. Have you told your mother yet? Ella asked. About the doctor's visit yesterday? Caleb shook his head. I thought we could tell her together, at dinner tonight. Ella nodded, though she felt a fell utter of nerves. Do you think she'll be pleased that it's twins? I think she'll be over the moon, Caleb assured her. 2 Wexley heirs instead of 1. It's more than she could have hoped for. Even if one of them is a girl, Ella asked. The doctor hadn't been able to tell yet, but Ella had a feeling that at least one of the babies was female. Especially if one is a girl, Caleb said firmly. A daughter with your smile. She'd have me wrapped around her finger from day one. Ella laughed, turning in his arms to face him. You're going to be a wonderful father. And you'll be an amazing mother, he replied, his eyes soft with love. Our children are lucky already, and they're not even here yet. As they stood together in the garden, the autumn sun warming their faces, Ella thought about the journey that had brought them to this moment. From secret meetings under the willow tree to their hasty marriage, from Boston to their return to Wexley Hill. It had been a road filled with obstacles and heartache, but standing here now in the arms of the man she loved, with new life growing inside her, she knew every step had been worth it. Victoria watched them from her bedroom window, her expression thoughtful. Richard joined her, following her gaze to the young couple in the garden. They look happy, he observed. They are happy, Victoria acknowledged, despite everything I did to keep them apart. Richard put a hand on her shoulder. You were trying to protect our family in your own way. I was trying to control everyone and everything, Victoria corrected herself. I couldn't see that some things are beyond control. Like love? Richard suggested with a small smile. Victoria nodded reluctantly. Like love. She continued to watch as Caleb bent to kiss Ella, their figures silhouetted against the colorful fall foliage. She's good for him, isn't she? Better than we knew, Richard agreed. She reminds me of someone else I once knew. A young woman who wasn't afraid to speak her mind, who saw beyond status and wealth to the person beneath. Victoria glanced at him, surprised. Me? I was never like Ella. You were, Richard insisted gently, before society expectations and family pressures changed you, before you decided that the Wexley name was more important than anything else. Victoria turned back to the window, watching as Caleb led Ella to the old willow tree where their story had begun. Perhaps you're right, she admitted softly. Perhaps I've forgotten what truly matters. It's not too late to remember, Richard said, taking her hand. Down by the willow tree, Caleb spread his jacket on the ground for Ella to sit on, just as he had done on their first secret meeting. Do you remember the first time we met here? He asked, sitting beside her. Of course, Ella smiled. You said you just wanted my smile. And now I have so much more, Caleb said, taking her hand in his. Your love, your trust, our home, our future children. He kissed her knuckles. I'm the richest man in the world, Ella laughed. Not by your mother's definition. By the only definition that matters, Caleb corrected her. I have everything I need right here. As the sun began to set over Wexley Hill, casting golden light through the leaves of the willow tree, Caleb leaned in to kiss his wife. Ella's arms went around his neck, drawing him closer, her heart full of the love that had overcome every obstacle placed in their path. In the distance, lights began to come on in the big house. Soon they would go inside for dinner, face Victoria and Richard, share their news about the twins. There would be challenges ahead, of course, raising child. Wren, balancing Caleb's work with family life, continuing to navigate the complicated dynamics with his parents. But here, in this moment, under the willow tree where it all began, none of that mattered. They had each other. They had their love. And sometimes, as Ella had learned, that was enough to change everything. I love you, Caleb Wexley, she whispered against his lips. And I love you, Ella Wexley, he replied, his smile as bright as the day she had first given him hers. For the rest of our lives. The end.